Hello students, welcome to Gangs of Toppers. In this class, we are going to deal with an important topic, that is Africa. In this class, we will discuss about the location of Africa, about the political divisions and about the physical future. So, please go through the lesson very carefully, and before going to the chapter, first of all let me introduce myself. My name is MD Imran. Presently I am a teacher. I have a teaching experiences of more than 1 year and I have taught more than 1000 students. Now, please come to the chapter, that is Africa. Africa is the second largest of all the continent of the world. So who is the first largest? Asia is the first largest. After that, Africa is the second largest of all the continent of the world. Now, it has 54 countries. This continent, that is Africa, has how many countries? That is 54 countries. Now, this equator, that is equator, passes through the middle of Africa. You find this is the map of Africa, and this equator, this is the equator, and equator is going to divide Africa into two parts, you can say, and this passes through the middle of Africa. You say that equator is passing through the middle of Africa. And most of the Africa lies between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. You will see that this Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, in this area, most of part of the Africa is going to lie in this zone. And we know that the region between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, these regions are known as what? Tropical zone. So now before one keyword is there, that is what is Africa. In Latin, that is Africa is also called as Africa. What does it mean? It means that these areas where the sun receives for most of the year, means you will get mostly throughout the year you will get sunny day. Now in Greeks it's talked that it means Africa, which means without cold, means you already studied that the region between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, these regions are having the tropical type of climate. Okay. Now we will study about the political reasons. Most countries of the Africa were under the European rules. Since we have studied that, we talk about that most of the countries of the Africa, okay, this most of the countries of the Africa, they are under the rules of the Europeans. They are under the rules of the Europeans, okay, for a long time. And by the second half of the century, second half of the 20th century, means we are talking about the second half, means we are talking about the 50, 60, 1960s and 1970 era. And in this area, most of the African countries or continent become independent. Means you will see that most of the countries became independent in the second half of the 20th century. Now, if we talk about the Africa, there is Africa, that is Africa gained full independence only in 1994. Means Africa get full independence in which year? That is 1994, from the white majority rule. Okay. Now the 6 countries of the Africa in the north, that is you will find that Barbary state. You will see Barbary state. After that you will find Morocco. This is Morocco, and after that Algeria, and after Tunisia and Libya and the Egypt. And these are the countries are called as the what the region will call as, it is also called as the regions, the Middle East and the North Africa. This is called as Middle East and the North Africa. This 6 countries. Once again, that is Barbary state, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya and the Egypt. These are the countries. Okay. And these are called as what? These regions are called as Middle East and the North Africa. What are called as? These regions are called as Middle East and the North Africa. That is also called as MENA. And the larger, you find that larger part of the Africa is going to lie in the intertropical Africa, intertropical zones. And you find that in the last chapter we have sent this southern south, that is south, you will find that there is a Sahara. This is the reason is this is Sahara Desert, and this south of the Sahara Desert, you will find that these regions are lying in the intertropical zone. Okay. So it is saying that the larger part of Africa, that is intertropical Africa, lies south of Sahara Desert. Already studied that if this is the Sahara Desert, suppose this is the Sahara Desert, and south of this you will find intertropical Africa, and it is also called as African south of Sahara. It is also called as African south of Sahara. Now we will study about location and the extent. Okay. Africa, that is comprises about 1/5 of the total land surface of the earth. You will see that Africa is going to comprise how, that is 1/5 of the total land surface of the earth. Means how much percentage? That is 20% of the total surface of the earth. And if you see that in the north-south direction, if you talk about the latitudinal extent, it extends from 37 degree north to 35 degree south. You see in the map, you will find that it is going to, that is 37 degree, that is from 37 degree 37 degree in the north and to the 35 degree in the south. And if you talk about the longitudinal extent, you'll find that 17 degree west to 51 degree east. So this is very important, that what is the latitudinal and the longitudinal extent. Okay, so it is given that, and Cap Agulhas, this can be the inside question, that Cap Agulhas is the southernmost point of the Africa. Okay, once again, that in location, what we are going to learn about, it comprises 20% of the land surface of the earth. First one, 20% of the total land surface of the earth. Second one is that what is the latitudinal extent, that is it is going to extend how much, that is from 37 degree north to the 35 degree south latitude. And if we talk about the, that is a 17 degree west to the 51 degree east, this is the longitudinal extent. Okay, and which is the southernmost point of the Africa, that will called as Cap Agulhas. Okay, now about the boundaries we'll study, that is Africa is the second largest continent next to Asia. You will see that Africa is already studied, that Africa is the second largest continent next to Africa, and it is surrounded by water on, you will find that it is surrounded by water on many sides. You will see that it is surrounded by water on many sides. First, that is in the north, you will see the Mediterranean Sea. You will see in the north, it is in the north, you will find that is a Mediterranean Sea. In the southeast, you are going to find the Red Sea, and in the east you will find in the Indian Oceans, and in the west you are going to find the Atlantic Ocean, and in the south you are going to find the Southern Oceans. Okay, so these are the boundaries of the Africa. So it is surrounded by water on the three sides. On all sides, you will feel that in the north by the Mediterranean Sea, in the northeast you will find the Red Sea, and in the east you find the Indian Oceans, and in the west you find the Atlantic Ocean. And again, this Strait of Gibraltar is going to link Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Oceans and separate Africa from Europe. You will see that this is the Strait of Gibraltar. This is going to connect large water bodies. You will find that in the east you will find Mediterranean Sea, and in the west you find the Atlantic Ocean. So this Strait of Gibraltar is going to link Mediterranean Sea, that is in the east, and the Atlantic Ocean in the west, and it also separate, and it is going to separate, that is Africa and the Europe. Okay, now the question can be asked that what is a strait? A strait is basically a narrow stretch of water. This is a narrow stretch of water body that is connecting to the two seas, connecting the two large bodies, that is connecting the two seas. This Strait of Gibraltar is going to connect Mediterranean Sea, that is in the east, and Atlantic Ocean in the west. So the Strait of Gibraltar connects Mediterranean Sea with the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, and you see that in the map, this is a narrow stretch of water body. This is a narrow stretch of water body. Now you will find that the states of Bab el Mandeb separate Africa from Arabia, and it connects the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Look in the map. This is Bab el Mandeb. This is Bab el Mandeb. This is going to separate Africa and Arabia. Okay, and you will see that this Red Sea is going to connect it with the Gulf of Aden. This region is the Gulf of Aden, and which state is it? That is the state of Bab el Mandeb. Okay, I think up to here it's okay. Now, what is isthmus? You will find that it is a narrow strip of land. You see, this is a narrow strip of land, and that is with water on its side. You will find that this is a narrow strip of land and water on this both sides. You will see this is very good diagram, that this is a narrow strip of land and water on both sides, and basically this narrow strip of land is going to connect large land. Okay, means it is going to connect two masses of land. This is large land or two masses of land. So you can find the definition that an isthmus is a narrow strip of land. This is a narrow strip of land that is water on both sides. That is water. You will find water is here and water is here, and connecting the two masses, connecting the two land masses, and that is the isthmus of Suez. You will find that isthmus of Suez. Okay, Africa is connected with the continent of Asia by the isthmus of Suez. Okay, and you see this. I am talking about this. This is you will find this Asia and Africa, and it is connected by isthmus of Suez. You find that this is a narrow stretch of land connecting the two land masses. So you can say that this is isthmus of Suez is going to connect Asia and Africa, and you can say that this is isthmus of Suez. Besides of this water body, you will find Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. Okay. So it is written that Africa is connected with the continent of Asia by the isthmus of Suez, and it links the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Means how it is going to, we have the Suez Canal. And through the Suez Canal we can connect the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. Now Africa is the only continent which is crossed by the three main latitudes. We will find that Africa is only one single continent through which we find the three main lines. That is three latitudes: that Tropic of Cancer, Equator, and the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, now Next topic is about the discoveries and the exploration. Africa remained unknown to the world for a long time due to its inaccessible interior. We'll find that Africa, since this Africa is lying in the tropical zone, so they are getting water throughout the years. You can say evergreen forests are there. Okay, so this Africa remained unknown to the world for a long time. Why? Because due to inaccessible interior, means the people were not able to enter into it. In the middle of the 19th century, we are talking about in the region between 1819. Okay, Sir Henry Martin Stanley, Mungo Park, and the missionary David, that is Livingstone. These three people were the first explorer. Means we have studied why it was unknown to the many, because it was because the people were not able to enter inside. Okay. And if you talk about in the middle of the 19th century, three persons, very important person, that is Sir Henry Motley Stay, Mungo Park, and a missionary that is Dr. David Livingstone. These are the three persons who were the first explorer to venture where? Into the interior of the Africa, mean to enter into the interior of the Africa. Europeans named it dark continent. Now, how going Africa is also called as dark continent. Why? Because it has a dense forest. Why? Because it has a dense forest, marshes, swamps, and the vast desert. You will find that most part of the Africa are having the dense forest, and some part of the Africa have the vast deserts also. You will find, and marshes areas and swamps. The reasons for the late discoveries of the continent are now. We are going to deal with the reasons behind the late discovery of the continent. First one is that Sahara Desert, that is in the north, is the greatest obstacles for the southward movement of the people, as it is very vast. You will find that in the north, you will find this is the reason is Sahara Desert. So the people were not able to access inside the Africa. Okay. So this Sahara Desert is going to become a great obstacles for the people or for the people movement. Now, second, the large interior of the Africa is densely forested, forming a canopy so that even sun ray cannot penetrate. You will find that some part of the Africa are having the dense forest. Okay, so due to density, they are forming a canopy. They are forming a canopy like a structure, and due to which the sun ray cannot penetrate. Sun's ray are not going to penetrate. Why? Because having the dense forest. Now it has a hot and the damp climate. You will find that these regions are having the hot climate, and at the same time the humidity is very high. Humidity is very high. Means you can say that it has a hot and the wet climate. Okay. Now it has unhealthy climate due to the presence of the marshes and swamps. You will find that most of the regions are having a presence of marshes and the swamps area. So mosquitoes can cause malaria, and poisonous insects like testis flies are very harmful for the life. So since these areas are having unhealthy climatic conditions, why? Due to the presence of marshes and the swamps and mosquitoes, it is a good place for the breeding of mosquitoes. So these mosquitoes can cause malaria, and one important insect that is known as that is flies. These are very poisonous insect, and if anybody get that is injected by these insects, then it is very harmful for their life. So the people were not able to. So the people decides that I will not enter like that. Okay. The rivers are not useful for the navigation, as most of them are rapid and the falls. You will feel that there are many rivers in the Africa, and these are not navigable, because you will find that there is many falls and the rapids. You will find that there are many rivers, but you will find that most of the rivers are not navigable. Why? Because you will find that these rivers are having what? Rapids and the falls. Rapids and the falls. The interior in the inhabited by the tribes who are hostile to the foreigners. You will feel that some of the people, or you can say the tribal people that are living in Africa, they are hostile to the foreigners. They consider the foreigner as an enemy. So the people were not. This is the reasons for the later discovery of the Africa. This is the reason for the later discovery of Africa. First one is that about the Sahara Desert, and second one is about the densely forested. Third one is about the hot and the damp climate, and about the unhealthy climatic conditions. And the fourth one is about the rapid. The rivers are not navigable because you'll find many rapids and the falls. And the last one is that the inhabitants, the tribal people consider foreigner as a what? As a enemy. Now we will study about the major physical feature. Africa is in fact a vast plateau consisting of ancient crystalline rock. So first plateau is very important, that Africa is a vast plateau, and it is made up of ancient crystalline rock, and it is also called as a plateau continent. It is also called as a plateau continent. The plateau is higher in the southeast and the slope gently towards northeast. So we will feel that the plateau that is higher in the southeast and slope gently towards the northeast. Towards the northeast and the east, the table land rises into highlands of considerable height. You will find that towards the northeast, we are talking about towards the northeast and again east, you will find that the table land is going to rise into highlands. Means the land is rising above the some elevations of considerable height. Now, eastern highland is pierced by a number of rift valleys. You will find that this is Africa. This is Africa. This eastern highland is going to going to cut into many rift valleys, okay, which contains a large number of lakes like Lake Rudolph. You find that so this what is Rift Valley? First of all, this you find that this the land, some portion of the land is going to sink, and this is called a Rift Valley. And besides this, you will find this is called the Block Mountain, okay. So it is written that the eastern highland, we are talking about this eastern areas. You find that there you can find many rift valleys. You are going to find many rift valleys, and which contains a large number of rivers like Lake Rudolph, Lake Albert, Lake Tanganyika, and the Lake Naisha. And these rift valleys are besides by means these rift valley there is a besides this you will find block mountains which many are high volcanic mountains. We are talking about that these block mountains are made up of, you can say, high volcanic mountains, you can say. By looking at the relief map, we can divide Africa into the 6 major regions. We are going to divide the Africa into 6 major regions. First one is that desert region. First one is what? Desert region. Second one is about the African plateau. And the third one is lowlands and the basins. Fourth one is the mountain. And the fifth one is the Rift Valley. And the sixth one is the drainage. Now, first of all, first topic is about the desert region. 1/3 of Africa is covered by the Sahara Desert. You find that out of 100%, 33% of Africa is covered by the Sahara Desert. The largest desert in the world. Sahara Desert is the largest desert in the world. Its surface is not uniform. You find that this surface is not going to uniform, and these are few highlands. There you can find there are few highlands like Tibesti Plateau, Agar Plateau. You can find these two important plateaus, that is Tibesti Plateau and the Agar Plateau. This forms a highlands. Now you'll find there are several oases. Oases you can like this water bodies, okay, where water is available. Means you'll find in the desert oasis. You are going to find several oases that is having water. That is Kufra Oasis and the Siwa Oasis. It extends from the Red Sea in the east to the Atlantic Ocean in the west. Means talking about that desert is the extension. It extends from the Red Sea to the east in the Atlantic Oceans. That is in the west. Look in the map. We are talking about that is it is going to extend from the Red Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. We are talking about this region. Okay. Now, the Kalahari Desert in the south and the Namib Desert is along the western coast. You will find that this Kalahari Desert that is in the south and Namib Desert that is along the western coast having the desert region. Now, African Plateau will say this is the Tibesti Plateau. Okay. Now, African plateau on a whole is known as the plateau continent. So Africa is itself known as a plateau continent. Why? Because it is made up of old volcanic rocks, so that is composed of old, hard, crystalline, igneous and the metamorphic rocks. So we will study that Africa on a whole, if we consider, it is a plateau continent. It is a plateau continent, and it is made up of old one. It is going to made up of old volcanic rocks composed of this old volcanic rocks is having a composition of old, hard, crystalline, igneous and the metamorphic rock. Okay. Now, Africa plateau extends from the South Africa to the North Sahara and from now what is the extension of African plateau? That is it extends from the South Africa to the North Sahara and from Guinea coast in the west to the Somali in the east. Means we are talking about this that it is going to extend from this to this area and from this Guinea coast to this Somaliland. Okay. Africa plateau is further divided into a number of smaller plateaus. Now, again we are going to divide African plateau into a number of plateaus. The height of these plateaus is greater in the south. You will find that the height of the plateau is greater in the south and decreases towards north. Now, we will talk about the low basins. Africa does not have a large lowlands or a plains. You will find that Africa does not going to have a large lowlands and the plains. These are narrow coastal plains. Which are flanked by plateau escarpment. You will find, and besides this lowlands, you will find a plateau escarpment. Okay, and the coastal plains are wide in Mozambique. So you will find that the coastal plains that are in the eastern highlands or eastern plains. You will find that eastern areas The coastal plains are wide in Mozambique, Mozambique and the Guinea coast in the west. However, there are a number of rivers, valleys and the plains basins which include Orange basins in the South Africa, Congo basins in the Central Asia and the Lake Chad in the Chad and the Niger basin in the Nigeria in the west. Means you will find we are talking about the lowlands, okay. So Africa does not have a large number of lowlands, okay. And if you find these lowlands, you can find in the narrow coastal plains such as in the coastal plains that is in the Mozambique areas, okay. Mozambique, Somalia, this Mozambique, Somalia and the Guinea coast. In these areas you are going to have a lowlands. Now if you talk about the basins, you will find that is river basins. So we are talking about the Orange basins, Congo basins, Lake Chad and the Niger basins. Means we are talking about the river, and if we are talking the region around the river. Now, many of these basins are inland drainage. You will find that many of these are inland drainage, and such basins. What is this drainage means? Such basins develop whenever the river flows into the lakes of inland swamps, but not into the sea. Means we are talking about the Chad basin. This Chad river is going to originate from land itself and is going to terminate in land itself. Okay, so many of these basins are inland of drainage system basin. Means talking about that there are many rivers in Africa. They are basically inland rivers. They are basically inland rivers. So in that you will find the Chad basin, and this is a what? This is the inland drainage basin. Now talk about the mountain. There are a number of mountains of different types in Africa. You'll find that there are many mountains of different types. First one is about the fold mountain. Second one is about the block mountain. The Cape ranges in the extreme south of region. The best example is the Cape ranges in the extreme south region. These are the remnants of the ancient old fold mountains. You will find that these Cape ranges are the remnants of ancient old fold mountains, and these ranges are not very high. Why? Because these are the remnants. These are the remnants of ancient fold mountains. So these ranges are does not going to have high. Why? Because all get eroded. These ranges are not very high. The Cape ranges partially close into two areas which are great steppe extending from the coast to the South African plateau, and they are called as Karus. Means what is called as Karus means the Cape ranges. We are talking about these ranges are partially enclosed into two areas where there is a great steppes extending from the coast to the South African plateau. We will say that it extends from the coast to the South African plateau, and these are known as Karus. The Atlas Mountains of the northwestern Africa are very young fold mountain. You find that where is a young Atlas Mountain. This is the Atlas Mountain. This is a young fold mountain. This is a young fold mountain, and these were formed at the same time in the Himalayas and the also of the Europe. Means talking about this is the Atlas Mountains. These Atlas mountains are formed when the Himalayas and the Alps were formed. Now talk about the block mountains. This is a block mountains. We are talking. This is basically a block mountain, and besides you find the Rift Valley. Okay, the Eastern African Rift Valley, extending from the Red Sea to the river Jambanji, has a block mountain on both its eastern and the western flanks. On both its eastern and the western flank. Example is Mount Ravenjori. Means we are talking about that this is actually a Rift Valley, and besides you found a block mountain. So it's talking about that this Eastern African Rift Valley is going to extend from the Red Sea to the river Jambanji. Okay, so this is the Red Sea, and from this Red Sea to this river Jambanji, you will find that there are many Rift Valleys, and besides you will find block mountains. Besides you are going to find block mountain on both sides, that is in the eastern part and also on the western part. Now about the Ethiopian highlands, most of the highlands, that is most of the highest peak of these regions are the volcanic mountains. You will find that these Ethiopian highlands have many highest peak, okay, and they are formed from the volcanic mountains. These mountains that is lies in the Red. These mountains is going to lie in the Red Valley. Mount Kilimanjaro is the highest mountains in Africa. So you have to remember that this Mount Kilimanjaro, that is about 5,895 meter, is the highest mountain in Africa, and it is a volcanic peak. It is a volcanic peak, and it is covered with ice and snow, because since the height is more, so it is going to covered with snow. Mount Kenya, Mount Elgon, Mount Cameroon, Mount Kilimanjaro, and the Ethiopian highlands, Mount Ravenjori, are the other important volcanic mountains of the region. So we're talking about this Ethiopian highlands. These have many high peaks, and they are made up of volcanic mountains. Now talk about the residual mountains. The Agar and the Tibesti Plateau, that is in the North Africa, are example of residual mountains. So we'll say this Agar and the Tibesti. This is the Agar, and this is Tibesti. These are the example of residual mountain. These are the example of residual mountain. Now we talk about what is Rift Valley. The most prominent physical feature of Africa is the Rift Valley, and you will find that the extension Rift Valley is from the Red Sea to the river Jambanji. This is the extension, okay. You will see this is the Rift Valley, and it is visible in the satellite, since this Rift Valley is going to be visible from the satellite also. What is the formation of Rift Valley? A Rift Valley is a long and narrow valley. You find that a Rift Valley is going to have a long and narrow valley with a steep sides, with a steep on both sides, with this steep side and this steep side. And this steep side is going to be called as Block Mountain, and this sink side is known as what is Rift Valley. The crack which occurs due to the movement in the interior of the earth are known as fault. Now, if there is any crack or if there is any sink of the land, then that are known as fault. And when the land between the two faults, when the land between the two faults sinks, when the line between the two faults, when there is a crack in between, this is called fault. And when this land is going to sink, it forms a Rift Valley. And the steep sides means besides of this you will find the Block Mountain. Okay, I think you can differentiate between the Rift Valley and the Block Mountains. Means the land that we sinks between the two faults, that we called as Rift Valley, and the above this land, the besides of this Rift Valley, will find the Block Mountain. Now, the Great Rift Valley of Africa is about 6,440 km long and extends from the Red Sea to the river Jambaji in the south. You will find that talking about this Great Rift Valley, that is from the river Red Sea to the river Jambaji, that is the extension is about 6,440 km. Okay. And it is long, so it is, since it is long, so it is called as Great Rift Valley. Okay, and it has a chain of red valleys and a number of deep lakes. You will find that it is a chain of red valleys, and it has a number of lakes also. Lake Rukwa, Lake Tanganyika, and the Lake Malawi, and these are the lakes, and that are lies in the western Rift chain. They are going to lies in the western chain. Means if we talk about this is the Rift Valley, and besides of this is the west area, and besides of this is the eastern area. So these lakes are going to find in the western Rift chain. And the Lake Victoria, Lake Chad are not in the Rift Valley. You find that this Lake Victoria and the Lake Chad are not a part of Rift Valley. So this is also a good one. Now we talk about the drainage system. Nearly 1/3 of Africa has no direct drainage to the sea. So you will say that 1/3 means about the 33% of the rivers that are present in Africa, they are not directly drainage to the sea. Means they are inland drainage. They are inland rivers. A majority of rivers of the regions are characterized by the rapids and the waterfalls and the deep gorges. You will find that most of the rivers are not navigable. Why? Because these are the reason. These rivers are having a characteristic of rapids, waterfalls, and the deep gorges. Okay. Now, the main features you will study, there is a great fluctuation in the volume of water with the season. You will see that there is a great fluctuations in the volume of water in the seasons with the year. Therefore, the rivers of these regions are unfit for the navigation. We will see that most of the regions are not able to get water on a proper time. So these rivers are, we can say that as a seasonal. These are not perennial, and that's why these regions are unfit for navigation. So therefore, these regions are going to unfit for the navigations. The mouth of these rivers do not favor the development of goods. You will find that the mouth of these rivers are not good for the development of ports. Why? Because it is going to form a delta. It is going to form delta or river basins. There are a few rivers which are perennial. We find that there are few rivers which are perennials, and there are many rivers which are inland drainage, and some of the important rivers are as well. We will discuss about there are few rivers which are perennials, which having water throughout the year, and there are many rivers which are inland rivers. Okay, so we'll discuss one by one. That is River Nile. River Nile that is originates in the Lake Victoria. So River Nile is going to originate from the Lake Victoria. This is the Lake Victoria, and River Nile is going to originate from this. So, and White Nile is the main tributary of the River Nile. You will see that this White Nile is going to be the main tributary of the River Nile, and Blue Nile is another tributary and originates from the Lake Tana in Ethiopia. We will see that White Nile is the tributary of Lake River, and this Blue Nile is going to be the tributary of White River, and it originates from the Lake Tana, that is in Ethiopia. Bahar al-Arab, that is another a tributary of White Nile. So we will find that this Bahar al-Arab is also a tributary of White Nile. It is also a tributary of White Nile, that is in Sudan. River Nile is having, what is the length of this River Nile? That is about 6,670 km long and considered as the world's longest river in water. So we have to consider that this River Nile is going to be the world's longest river in the world. Okay. Now we'll see about that. It meets the Mediterranean Sea in the Egypt. That is the Nile forms the most famous delta that is about 250 km wide. So we will study that this river Nile is going to deliver water. This river Nile is going to deliver water, drain water to the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. And this is the Lake Tana. This is the Lake Tana. So we have already studied that this Lake Tana, that's Blue Nile. This is the Blue Nile now. This is the Blue Nile. This is the Blue Nile, and this is going to be the tributary of what? River Nile. And it originates from the Lake Tana. And one more tributary you have to understand, that is Bahar Al Arab. It is also the tributary of White Nile, and the length is about 6,670 km long, and it is considered as the longest river in the world. And where it is going to drain water, and it is going to meet the Mediterranean Sea, and it forms a delta which is about 250 km wide. Now, I think in this topic, that is River Nile, you have to understand about the origin, about Lake Victoria. White Nile is the main tributary, and Lake Tana, that is also originates a river that is also called as Blue Nile, and Bahar Al Arab is also a tributary of White Nile. Now, and what is the length of the Nile? That is about 6,670 km, and it is considered as the longest river of the world, and it is going to drain water to the Mediterranean Sea, and it forms a delta that is about 250 km wide. Up to here, okay. Now, Nile Delta, it in its northernmost region. Now we will talk about in Nile Delta, where it is you find in the Mediterranean Sea. The river Nile has deposited huge quantity of silt and the alluvial to form the fan-shaped Nile Delta, and the Nile splits into two main channels at the base of the delta, which are interlinked by the dense network of the canals and the drainage channels. Means, since the area or width of the delta is about 250 km wide, so what is going to have delta? It is huge, means Nile River is going to deposit a huge quantity of silt and the alluvial. So, and this delta is going to be connected or interlinked by a dense network of channels and the drainage pattern. Now, River Zaire and the Congo. You will find that the River Zaire is here. River Zaire you will find, and the River Congo and the River Jambaji and all. The River Zaire and also known as River Congo. This is the River Zaire and it's also known as River Congo. Okay. So it is a river of the Central Africa. So you will find that this is the river of Central Africa. This is lying in the Central Africa. So it is a river of Central Africa, and it has many falls at the rapids, and it is not fit for the navigation. And however, it has a great tidal power potential, that is Ubangi and the Kasai are its tributary. You will find that these regions are lying in the tropical region, that is on the equator, and these rivers are having many falls in the rapids, but these rivers are not navigable. These rivers are unfit for the navigation, but it is used for the generation of hydroelectric power. So you will find that this river Congo has a two tributary, that is Ubangi and the Kasai are the main tributary of this river Congo. After that, we are going to study about the river Niger. It is one of the important rivers of the West Africa. You will find that this river Niger is going to be in the Western Africa. And river Benue is the this river Benue is the main tributary. So we have to understand that for river Niger, which river is the tributary? That is Benue. And river Jambaji, you will find that is in the south. This is river Jambaji, this here. Okay. So that is the river, the major rivers of the South Africa. This river Jambaji, the main river of the South Africa, or the famous Victoria Falls are across over it. You have to understand that the famous Victoria Falls are over it, and huge dams has been constructed for the hydel power. Okay. The other important rivers are the Senegal, Orange rivers, and which drain into the Atlantic Ocean. You will see that this is the Orange River and this is the Senegal River. These are going to drain water into the Atlantic Ocean. Now after that, the Chad Basin are the large inland drainage basin. You will see that the Chad Basin are the inland drainage basin, and the main river is the Chad River. And you will find many lakes, that is in the Great Rift Valley are Lake Albert, Lake Edward, and the Lake Kivu, and the Lake Tanganyika, Lake Nasser, and the Lake Kariba are the artificial lake. So we have to understand the Lake Nasser and the Lake Kariba are the artificial lake in Africa. We are talking about this Lake Tana, Lake Rudolph, Lake Victoria, Lake Rukwa, Lake Tanganyika. These are the lakes that are found in the Rift Valley. They are going to found in the Rift Valley. Thank you. In this class we have this much only. Thank you very much.